Whoa. Okay.
It's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Welcome to the show. I'm James.
I'm David.
I'm Riley.
And today we are discussing the 2012 Paul Thomas Anderson movie, The Master. We'll laugh, we'll argue, you might get a little too into it, but at the end of the day, they're just movies.
Say spoiler alert.
Say it.
Say it
Spoiler
again.
alert. Spoiler alert.
One more time.
I'm an alcoholic.
We're the show that Jolly Girl called addicting, with a film student, usually a guy that hates the movie, and another guy that likes it. So you get to hear many views and opinions about many movies. Lady, these aren't opinions, they're facts.
We are so different from each other.
Thanks for the 5-star review. Next week, we're going to do a Riley movie, Annihilation.
Are we? Oh, is that next week?
That's next week, baby.
Heck yeah.
I control the calendar. I control the world.
I mean, I'm glad you do. I'm very excited.
All right, David, give us your rating out of 10 on The Master.
Oh, boy. On his way to completely submerging his head inside his own ass forever,
Wow.
Paul Thomas Anderson gasped for air one last time. And even as the lightly shit-tinged breath filled his lungs, slowly pumping the traces of odor through his bloodstream and into his brain, he managed to direct such hypnotic performances and remarkable visuals that the plodding, pompous, parsimonious storytelling of the master could be enjoyed. 7 out of 10.
You're getting serious with these slogans.
What a wild ride.
Last week and this week, man.
That slogan started out normal and it went all the way up its own fucking ass.
Oh, yeah.
And,
well, but like, this is what I like about your, last week you did this too. Your slogan is like reflecting something about the movie.
High concept slogans,
Not
baby.
only in what you're saying, but in its structure.
Yeah.
This is beautiful.
Meta slogans.
We should do a slogan review podcast. Okay, my turn?
I guess.
Yeah, I've taken the opposite tack with my slogans. I used to care more about them, and now they're throwaways.
It's okay. 6 out of 10.
This movie is a masterclass in acting, lighting maybe, and little else. I'm giving it a 7 out of 10, basically just because the performances of Phillip Seymore Hoffman and Joaquin Phoenix and Amy Adams is okay too, but they are just like crazy, so good. The rest of the movie, I'm just kind of like, why are we here? What's the point?
Do you like Daniel Day-Lewis's performance? He's the chair.
Hello?
James, you got your work cut out for you.
Oh, whatever.
I give it a 7. What'd you get at 7? Okay.
There's a lot to recognize.
It sounds like it's one of those movies where it's like the whole podcast is going to be like, this movie sucks so bad. It's actually a good movie though, but let's just talk about how much I don't love this movie. It's like,
I didn't realize that I didn't really like it until like halfway through when I realized it wasn't really going anywhere.
you know what? Let's just hear it.
Okay.
The movie is beautifully shot, impeccably acted, and deeply thinky. It's a bit of a slow, it's a bit slow, and the best scene is obviously like 35 minutes in, but whatever. I'm gonna give it 8.75, 9-ish territory. I was gonna give it like a 9 something, and then I realized, well, I like There Will Be Blood better.
Oh, for sure.
Like there's other PTA movies I like better, so it's not a perfect movie, but damn, some scenes in this movie are so good.
Yeah.
It's really like kind of an oscillating experience. On the whole, yeah, it's kind of slow, and it's not like really a plotty kind of plot-driven movie.
No.
It doesn't culminate in like a huge climax, really, but it's I love looking at it.
Yep.
It's Oscar bait in like a good way because it is actually like very compelling, but in only one way for me.
And I think you could make an analysis of this movie or a reading of it that really gives it a point or an idea. Like there is so much, so many ideas that are kind of just like floating around. But if someone could rein them in and give it a point, it would be like, oh, this is like a 10 out of 10.
It's one of those like rewatchable movies. It's not like for example, something like Inception or Interstellar. You're like, you've seen it, and then the next time you've seen it, you're like, yeah, I knew that was gonna happen. So it's like not as good as the first time I saw it. But this movie, there's nothing to like get in that respect. There's no twist or whatever. It's just the more you watch it, the more like subtlety you can dredge out of it. Because it's so slow and takes so long that you have so much time to think. You know, it's like, okay, does Phillip Seymore Hoffman's character, he's like, does he know that he's not coming back on that motorcycle at this point? Okay, now he's starting to get it.
Yeah.
Is he mad about it? He's pissed.
It does give you a lot of time to think, and I want to know what those things are. After
Let's think about our sponsor, Secret Lab. Their chairs are designed to keep you comfortable for those long nights of watching slow movies or playing. Their Titan Evo 2022 series chair offers 4-way lumbar support, comes with a magnetic memory foam head pillow for head support, and is offered in different upholsteries like hybrid leatherette, soft weave leather, and Napa leather, the official leather of New Age religions. Best of all, a 5-year extended warranty is included underneath your butt, so 49-day return policy covers your butt. Learn more about Secret Lab at lmg.gg/secretlabtjm. Cover your butt. Wow, we made it, guys. Thanks to Vessi Footwear for sponsoring today's show. Vessi Footwear is known for being lightweight, easy to pack, comfortable, and most importantly, David-proof. I mean, water resistant. With its Dymatex technology, no water's getting in there for a while, guys. Their Everyday Move line is designed with added support at the midsole and better breathability to keep up with you on your active lifestyle day to day.
What is David doing with these shoes?
He's going everywhere with those shoes.
Throw them in the washing machine.
Take them off. They clean really well. Take them off and put them back on with ease thanks to the handy pull tabs. It's also made creature free, so every step you take will be guilt free. Ain't nothing gonna break my stride. Your feet will thank you for wearing these. Say goodbye to wet sex and check them out.
Wow.
Vessi.com/TJM and use the code TJM. Goodbye.
Man,
that's it.
I missed you doing these instead of me. That was amazing.
The copy is just so suitable for singing that song. It just kept going.
That was better than the movie.
What?
You want to know what happened in it? I'll let you know, James.
If you can tell me, that'd be amazing.
In 140 characters.
Following his discharge from the U.S. Navy after World War II, Freddie Quell is having difficulties adjusting to non-military life, partly due to his war experiences in the tropics. He has a violent temper. He is obsessed with sex, which is partly why he can't and won't commit to his teenage girlfriend, Doris Solstad. There it is, PTA. Said it earlier.
Come on.
And he is an alcoholic, drinking primarily concoctions he creates himself with dangerous ingredients. It is these factors in combination that led to him being fired from one job after another, from department store portrait photographer to cabbage picker.
He was good at that job.
He was.
Not cabbage picker, the other one.
Before wandering one night in 1950 while drunk, he stumbles upon a yacht being used by Lancaster and Peggy Dodd. Feeling a connection to the stranger, Lancaster invites Freddie to stay aboard the boat to work. In addition to that work, Lancaster indoctrinates him into his cult named The Cause, which purports to do things as varied as cure serious maladies and create world peace.
It's Scientology.
The entire Dodd family supports The Cause, except for Lancaster and Peggy's son, Val Dodd, who believes his father is just making things up as he goes along.
Well, I wouldn't say that. He supports it still.
Sort of.
Anyway.
Because of being, I just copied and pasted this one. It's not so accurate. Because of being lost psychologically, Freddie is easy prey. And he's looking for something or someone to guide him to a higher plane. But as Freddie travels with the Dodd family, he and the Dodds may become at odds with each other. What?
This is stupid. Here, let me synopsize this right now. There's an alcoholic guy, and it's like, hey, can the cause cure me or not? That's the dramatic question in the movie. And from the people who create the cult, they're like, can we help this guy or not?
Yeah.
He's kind of an asshole. Should we let him go? And that's the tension.
Okay, so at the end of the movie, Dodd realizes that his wife's criticisms are correct and that Freddie must venture out into the world and take his own path. He gives Freddie an ultimatum: stay with the cause and devote himself to it for the rest of his life, or leave and never come back. Freddie decides to leave. After leaving, he meets a woman at a pub and has sex with her while reciting the questions Dodd had first posed to him during their first session at sea. The film ends with the image of Freddie on the beach, lying in the sand, next to the sand sculpture of a woman he had earlier defiled.
Back to the beginning.
Okay, sorry for that messy synopsis. I didn't have time to write it, so I just copied and pasted from IMDb. But it's kind of appropriate because not much actually happens in the movie. I was waiting for some sort of driving thing to occur, but it's just it's what it is great as. I'll say this, and I alluded to this. It's great as this opportunity for Joaquin Phoenix and Phillip Seymour Hoffman to take these incredibly complex and intense roles and really just show us what they can do with a character.
They're so good in this.
I mean, yeah, that certainly is the strength. I think you're coming down on the directionlessness of the movie, but I think that's kind of intentional because it mirrors the mental state of Freddie, where he's so lost and meandering through this world. He has no place. He doesn't know. So
and the era. Apparently, I always saw this as it's a Scientology movie, Scientology fiction.
In my
movie.
memory, it was literally Scientology.
Well, I looked into this a little bit, and it's It's definitely Lancaster's obviously L. Ron Hubbard.
Yeah,
like,
it's
and
based on him,
there's
yeah.
lots of details that are very close to that. Like even them being on a boat and the career kind of ending in England. It's L. Ron Hubbard, but a lot of it's fictionalized. Like Freddie Quell's not a real person. He could have been based on this one guy named Welch, and we can talk about that in a bit. But it's kind of tricky because there's quotes of him saying it's not Scientology, but of course he's going to be quoted as saying that because Scientologists are super litigious and they'll like stalk you and do weird crap. So definitely don't want to say it's Scientology at all. And the Church of Scientology has said it's not Scientology. See, he even said it is not Scientology. It's obviously Scientology. If you guys are intrigued by this movie because you like the Scientology aspect, go watch the documentary or read the book Going Clear.
Is that the Remedy one?
No. That's like her own like series.
Wait, is this the one by
Lawrence Wright? No, Paul Haggis. Haggins?
That's not the one with the lady from the sitcoms, right?
That's what.
That's what he said. I think she might be in an interview in that movie in Going Clear.
Yeah.
But Going Clear is so comprehensive and so dope and so scary. Totally recommend that documentary. Unfortunately, not available on any streaming services, at least in Canada right now.
I love a good cult documentary.
It goes through the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's got tons of footage of Tom Cruise being crazy with a big medallion on it and shit. It's insane. Tons of interviews from people who escaped.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's good.
I feel like that's what made this movie interesting to watch. In addition to their acting, it's like I thought that it was going to say something about cults. Like I watched there's a really great documentary on this like Nexium cult, which was like this like sex slave type of situation.
Is that the one here locally in BC?
I think
Oregon?
I think they did have a chapter here, yeah, but I think they were based in New York or around that area. I forget. But yeah, I watched that recently and this made me think of that a lot. And I was like, okay, maybe we could say something about it. But actually, I want to, before we go any further, I want to read because a quote from Roger Ebert's review. Because back when he was alive, he reviewed this movie. The first thing he says in his review is, Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master is fabulously well acted and crafted, but when I reach for it, my hand closes on air.
That's beautiful.
It has rich material and isn't clear what it thinks about it. And that was my real thing because I wanted to see the Scientology drama, you know? I wanted it to say something about Scientology, but like it doesn't really... There's some similar themes, and he makes a reference to like other planets at one point, but like, and they have that guy questioning him on it, but like nothing really comes of that.
To me, I felt like the Scientology was sort of like window dressing. It wasn't really a main idea of the movie. The movie's more interested in like a lost man's place in the world and finding it through this sort of religion.
So this is what I was originally going to get into. Is I thought that this was Paul Thomas Anderson went out to make a Scientology movie. He didn't. He wanted to make a movie in this era, this post-war era where like everyone's optimistic because we just won the war, but also like spiritually bereft. Society was just like so empty and lost. There's like increasing consumerism and the sexual revolution and the civil rights movements. Everything was just like religion was just going down. And it was kind of an opportunity with science on their eyes as well for people to come in like L. Ron Hubbard and be like, make new religions and gives, because there's like a religion shaped hole in society.
For sure.
And so
a meaning shaped hole.
Yeah.
Purpose.
That's what this movie is all about. Like even I love the second shot of the movie where it shows Freddy's face with his like army helmet on. He's in the boat. You see that image, and for me, I just immediately get like shocked. Like I'm almost triggered by the image because that means it's D-Day. That means their boat is about to go on a beach and they're gonna get shot. But instead, it's boredom.
Yeah.
It's more like the movie Jarhead in that respect.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's like, oh god, like we're going over to this island. We're gonna stay there for 2 weeks and eat coconuts.
Yeah. It's not just boredom. It's the fact that like they have been cooped up with each other for so long. No different types of people, no women, no like old people, children or whatever. They're just like stuck in this like it's like being in isolation for years. And so you can see, especially Freddy, but like, you know, he's doing these kind of like out there things, and the other soldiers just aren't really even reacting to him because they're just like, I'm not fazed by you acting like a crazy person.
Well, and I think that they're trying to emphasize how isolated he is, even within like an army, which is like the most unified social group there is. Like everyone's part of it. He's always a part. Like there's that shot where they're all kind of like crowded around the naked woman. He's sort of hunched to the side, and they visually are trying to separate him from all the people. I think to accentuate that feeling that like. He just has no place.
Yeah, and he has these parts of him that are likable. Like he'll make a joke. He starts like, I don't know, groping the sandcastle, and people are like, ha 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 at first, but he just keeps going, keeps doing it, and they're just like, okay. They start kind of like touching their hair and going,
Yeah.
And then he goes and jerks off for real.
Like, and people are walking by. Yeah. That's the most realistic jerk off stance ever. His back's all arched and stuff.
He's
awesome.
honestly, he's like that the whole movie. He's just like completely arched, like his back is
This is
hunched
the
like
film that I think, I don't know if others saw it and felt this way, but this is the one where I was like, oh, Joaquin Phoenix, he's not just another actor, he's the best actor. I saw this and was like, he's next level shit. He's probably in the top 3 best living actors. I didn't know until I saw this movie.
I think I start out really liking his performance, and then as things go on, it's just, I don't want to bash on it too much, but like as things go on, his performance doesn't get worse. It's like it's still at that high level, and so is Hoffman's. But I think that the fact that there is not other stuff going on just makes me think more and more. It like all the little things that he's doing, like hunching his back like that. He squishes one side of his face because he's supposed to. I don't know. It's like that's just how his face looks, I guess. This character, and all these little like mannerisms in both him and Hoffman, I start seeing as like, oh, you're doing this because you're like an actor and you want to get acclaim for your amazing actor of this portrayal that's like, or this character that's so different from you.
I hear you. I feel like this movie does blow its load in its first 35 minutes, and it kind of makes its points and like gets there. And I think the actors sort of start to recycle some of their tricks that they're doing. So I agree with you there. But I think some of those tricks are so
they're
weird and powerful and so good.
Well, and I there's one scene that sticks out in particular where like the beauty of these two characters and these two actors together is like they'll just like do something completely unexpected. Like, well, not that unexpected, but like when after they get out of prison, they have this big fight in prison, and like Joaquin Phoenix's character is just like going crazy and he breaks the toilet and stuff. And I'm sure that there was some improv involved here. He's like knocking his head on the and Dodd is like I'm the only one who cares about you. He's like, stop it, you're an animal, blah blah blah. And the scene after that is the one that sticks out of my mind where they get out of prison, Quell gets to the house and Dodd comes down. And
they wrestle on the lawn.
They hug, but then it kind of turns into like a little wrestle match, and then like he like grabs his leg and drags him over, and he rips his pants, and at the end there's just like Freddy Quell or whatever, and everyone claps, and it's just like this is such. It's like it's amazing to watch. It's like fascinating. You're like, I'm not bored, in that moment. I'm just like. So it has that going for it.
Well, that's the thing. It's like if you think the movie's kind of boring, but then if you take it on a scene by scene basis,
so good.
They're all good scenes.
Yeah,
they're all interesting scenes.
Yeah.
Just on the strength of the acting, I think it's clear that the best scene in the movie, and maybe one of the best scenes you've ever seen in your life, is the no blinking processing
so
scene.
Good.
Oh yeah,
it's so intense.
Wow,
it's so intense.
It really is.
And you're like, how are you able to do this? Like it's so realistic too, and the character's becoming more and more vulnerable. And
yeah, I want to know if he actually, it gets possible. It didn't seem like out of the bounds of possibility that Joaquin could have just done that without any like assistance or something.
What do you mean,
like just keeping his eyes open that whole time, because his eye starts watering and tears start going down his cheeks, and then when he's like, close your eyes, and he does it, it like seems real. It seems like Joaquin Phoenix has just done that.
Oh, those eyes are dry. those eyes are dry, but they're sandpaper.
Because like oftentimes in movies, actors, some actors can make themselves cry, which is amazing. But like oftentimes you put the little drops in there, and so I was just like, we're witnessing this.
You get to
He's
see
not
it.
blinking.
You get to see
And
it. It's all in one shot. You
normally
get to see his forehead veins coming out. And everything.
Yeah, it was just really impressive. To activate those like drops, sometimes they put them in and they say don't blink, and then when you want the tears to fall, you blink, and then the tears fall. But he couldn't blink.
I like the way that
real.
they frame it, because they do the first part of the interview, and the premise of the interview is that if you blink, they've got to restart the interview, and they do the first iteration of it with the camera on Hoffman, and then when they restart, they put the camera on Quell, and that's awesome because you're getting the same questions again. But now they're more intense, and he's revealing more and becoming more vulnerable on the second run. So you want to be looking at Freddy on the second run, but it's just sweet because we get a turn looking at each of them. Then it ramps up intensity with the Quell angle. I just like it. It's just awesome.
That scene is like extra awesome because before he does the whole no blink thing, they do one run through like the informal processing, and you learn a lot about him as a character because you're picking up on these things up to that point. You're saying that's the one that's 35 minutes in, that scene?
Yeah.
So like up to that point, we're learning about Freddy. We're like, at first I was kind of like, is he especially horny and pervy, or is that just like standard for these guys coming back? And it's like, okay, no, you're learning that no, that's him.
He's weird.
He's weird over and above these guys. And so like what you've learned about him is accentuated in that scene, but only because he lies about every question that is asked. He answers every single question that Dodd asks him that first run through with a lie. Mm-hmm. He's like, do you care what people think? And he's like, no, not really, or whatever. And I forget what all the questions are, but everyone is like, as he answers, I'm just like, oh, he's lying on every single one of these. And then later he says, are you a liar? And he's like, yes. I think he says yes. But anyways, I'm just saying that like,
are you lying? And he's like, yes. And then, are you a liar? No. Or opposite.
Oh, the opposite. Yeah. Are you lying? No. Are you a liar? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's dope because you got these two characters who, on the one is like on paper a loser, and the other's on paper a great man, but they're kind of the opposite. Although,
I think that's what the tension is for Dodd, is that he kind of admires Freddy, even though he's kind of the biggest weirdo outcast. This freedom and like this, no one asks anything of him. He kind of, I think he sort of admires that and wishes that for himself, because like people are constantly coming to him for answers, and
including Freddy. Freddy looks up to him and it's like, this guy can put me on the path to a good life. And then throughout the movie, you kind of realize this guy's full of shit.
Yeah, and I love that scene when Laura Dern comes to him and he's like, well, like I saw in your new book that like you asked the question, can you imagine instead of can you recall? And he has to kind of come up with a bullshit explanation, and he's just like what the fuck do you want from me?
I actually had that as a hit pick. Laura Dern is so good, man.
So
when
good.
he yells at her like that, and she gets like startled, and then with her expression, she glares at him after that, and her face just says everything. It just says like, I thought, apparently this is not what I thought it was. This is not what I signed up for. You're not who I thought you were. You're lying. Fuck this.
Yeah.
All with a glare. Yep. That's what's great about this movie. When it's silent, it's because you can just get it all from the visuals.
I love that the movie has a lot of trust in the audience to have the patience and have the focus to grab these scenes. There's so many scenes that are just like one long take, or like maybe one or two shots intercutting, but like it has so much patience.
Yeah.
And it can be hard to engage with as an audience, but when you do, it's like, it's really rewarding. It's a really rewarding movie to engage with.
I think that it draws you in the right way, because it starts with a lot, like we were saying, it starts with a lot of these sort of long shots where it's not really telling you, it's not setting things up. It's like, hey, that's me. I'm a soldier. I have PTSD. Like, blah, blah. It's not like it's not feeding it to you. You're picking up on these impressions and stuff. I love the scene where the soldiers who have been through like absolute gruesome hell are sitting there and being told, well, maybe you could open a hardware store.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
hey,
it's such a good
the
scene.
people they use for that and the portraits that they show of these people like listening to that speech, you can tell some of them are kind of like cautiously optimistic. Some of them are just like, man, shut up.
You're like, I have disemboweled people. Like,
and they never show the person talking either.
Mm-hmm.
You think like usually a scene would end with like it showing the person giving the presentation, but they don't. I like the character introduction of Lancaster Dodd when he's giving that toast for the wedding, and he's like, before the cause, marriage was, well,
it was just okay.
It was okay, but now, well, there's a dragon, and he tells this big story about you getting a leash around this dragon, and next he's gonna roll over for you, and then you're like, wow, this guy's charismatic as fuck.
Yeah,
like 11 charisma.
Yeah.
Wait. What is he even saying?
Wait, what is he actually
like,
saying?
It has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's saying that like the cause is making it so that marriage isn't a mystery anymore, and we can like have tools to sort it out. But it's like the way that he's saying that, like that's the definition of charisma, right? Mm-hmm. You can like you can interact with people and like get information across in a more compelling way than other people can.
No, but I think what the movie is foreshadowing or like hinting at, the part of his character is hinting at, is that he's so charismatic and can just like, he has such a facility with words that when there's nothing behind it, the presentation was enough for you to just go like, okay, whatever.
It's empty charisma.
Let's sing the next song.
It's empty charisma.
Well, I think it's smart too, because at that point in the movie, we've only seen Dodd in positive lights. Like he's been very welcoming to Freddy and been like nice and smiling on stuff. So as an audience, you're willing to go with his story, even though like right away you're just like, this doesn't make any sense. But as an audience, you're getting the experience that the people at the table would be getting.
Man,
Yeah, and you realize he's like surrounded by sycophants.
Man, on that boat in particular, it's like Freddie Quell is such an interesting protagonist because I'm way more invested in what's going on around him than I am in him as a character. He's just like a dumb ape in this movie. He's literally walking around with his back hunched like an ape. And he's just trying to make his shitty moonshine and have sex with randos.
Called an animal.
He's just trying to hump things.
Yeah.
I appreciate the fact that Dodd keeps calling him an animal because it's like, yeah, he is acting like an animal. He has a mental illness.
Because you're a Dune fan.
He has a mental illness. I mean, this is a common trope, but it makes the movie a little less fun to watch for me because I appreciate going along on a ride with a character and identifying with the character, but this movie doesn't want you to. I mean, maybe it wants you to identify the features of Quell in yourself, but for the most part, Quell is just an excuse to tell this story about the cause.
And that's one of the problems I have as if I'm evaluating this movie from kind of a more traditional perspective, I have a hard time getting inside the mind of Freddie.
Not me, baby.
And it's hard because on paper you could definitely define his journey as something that we all go through, this lack of direction, this hopelessness, this search for meaning. But I don't find I identify with him in the movie. And the movie, I think, actively tries to repulse you from him by his introduction. He's repulsive.
Yeah.
Well,
and
that's a starting point, though.
Fair enough, but I think he grows and changes, but he's still midway through the movie, he's still pretty rough. And
that's what I'm saying.
I found my point being, I agree with Riley where I'm able to look at Dodd and understand why he's doing what he's doing. But even by the end of the movie with Freddie, I still he was sort of an enigma. Every action he took was a bit of an enigma to me. I didn't understand why he was doing it.
Well, Dodd's just a narcissist and just wants
and it's
power
easier to
and
put him
sex.
into a box for sure.
You know what? I think. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I think that with Freddie, it's at first he's just this lost addict, and then he decides he's gonna actually try to get better, even though he doesn't understand the methods.
Because they basically force him to.
He's gonna put energy into it, effort, and then ultimately it's he's gonna be who he is, but he doesn't completely reset back to the beginning, right? So he brings that girl back from the pub to his room. He's like, oh, Freddie going back to his old Freddie ways, but then he recites some of the stuff from the processing, so it's it did impact him. He is a different person, but some aspects of his character were just unchangeable.
Well, that's an interesting question. What do you think the fact that he's taking some of those tools means? Does it to me it reads as he wants to take control of his life, he wants to now use these tools he learned to control others, to be an active player.
I think that that's definitely a reading you can have. You can have a cynical reading where it's okay, he didn't really change at all, but now he's learned these tools, and like a monkey, he is imitating things that he's seen without really understanding them or thinking why he's doing it. He's just doing it.
Maybe he's doing it.
He's doing it to get laid, but
he's already being laid.
That's the cynical view. That's the cynical view, and then the optimistic view is that maybe he did actually internalize this thing, and he's still gonna go around and look for to get laid as much as possible, like an animal, but he's going to maybe have a bit more deep interactions with people.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
He's gonna have some kind of connection with people, because that connection is really about how vulnerable you can be with somebody else, and that he never was more vulnerable to anyone than he was when he did the processing with Lancaster. So he's already having coitus with this person when he starts asking her these questions, and then it all ends with
so weird.
He says, now put it back in, it fell out. Because he's still Freddie.
He's still Freddie.
Well, maybe that's the point too, because they make such a big deal of him being able to laugh at stuff, and laughter is of the animals and whatnot. So maybe that laughter is kind of the positive spin on this thing that he's internalized.
See, this is what's you can bring these interpretations out, and that's fine. I think it's just I was still sort of disappointed that the movie didn't seem to really say anything about it. Obviously, it's like a pain. This is what happened last time, I feel with PTA, where it's this movie's more of a painting than it is a story. It's just things happen in the movie, but nothing really happens.
For sure.
It's like looking at a still image. It's a situation and not motion.
Well, and I think the best movies always leave a little room for you to put your thoughts into it. And this movie has a lot of room for you
sure.
to put your thoughts into it. And I thought it really interesting. There's a quote from Anderson when people ask, like, what are the shots of the water? What does it mean? 'Cause so many people have theories as to what it is. He's like, ha!
Oh, yeah.
Those water shots are just nice. Sometimes you do things that you think are a good idea. Other times you just hope that some feeling hits you when you're putting the film together. You have to follow that. I'm not trying to be arty or elusive or anything. When we come into the editing room, where we come from in the editing room can sometimes be intellectual, but more often than not, it's instinctual.
Yeah.
See that I think this really that boils down why I don't really like Paul Thomas Anderson that much, because I'm like, yeah, pretty things, instinctive thing, following your feelings can be good, but I don't know. I feel like something like that where it's a recurring motif throughout the movie, and then he's asked directly about it. And he just said, I just thought it was a cool shot. I'm like, fuck you, dude.
I think it's fine. It's
Well,
completely fine.
it's fine.
But what- I agree.
He shouldn't be jailed over it. I'm just saying that, like,
I too was sitting there being like, what's the deal with the water? What is what does the wake mean?
yeah. But,
Nothing.
Like, the movie has a bunch of that stuff where it's just like, I'm looking for something. I'm looking for a statement, a moral, anything. And it's just kind of like the only moral I can take really is that like mentally ill people should have real treatment and not join cults.
And stop drinking chemicals.
Yeah. Even though something I did want to say is that like the interesting thing about cults a lot of the time, which I feel like was again sort of missing from this movie, but you can see clearly in like documentaries, like the next one I watched. I haven't watched the Scientology one, but
Going
like
clear.
sometimes there are some sort of like interesting method of psychological therapy that these cults stumble upon. Like, I'm not saying that, you know, it's great and it should be incorporated in medicine or whatever. I'm just saying that like sometimes people, there are reasons people stay in these cults. It's because of systems of power and abuse, and they don't feel that they escape. But they also stay a lot of the time because they feel like they've actually helped their lives.
Well, Scientology in particular it presents as self-help at the lower levels.
Right. So like, you know, with Nexium in particular, the founder kept talking about like, oh, we've stumbled upon this technology.
Oh, they call them technologies in Scientology as well.
There you go. Yeah. So like there are these methods, and a lot of the time people come in here with like past trauma or like, you know, fears or whatever, and they have to, and through, it's like therapy, you know, it's like weird therapy, but a lot of time it's like therapy, and only when you've been in there for a long time does the abuse start coming out and the exploitation and that kind of thing. But I was waiting for this movie to say something about that, and I guess we can sort of assume that Freddy got something, maybe, if we're taking the optimistic ending and saying that he, you know, learned something.
I think so. I mean, he's certainly better off at the end of the movie than he was at the beginning of the movie.
He was, but it's not super clear, you know?
That's
it's like,
PTA.
Because
He's
but
not going to spell it
they
out.
weren't sure. Like throughout the movie, Peggy's like, I don't know if we can help him, and like, is it the limits of the cause to help someone this demented? And turns out, yeah, he couldn't help him.
But they secretly did. Man, I can't believe how repulsed I am by the use of the chemicals in this movie. Not in like a bad way, but in like a visceral reaction to like when he's mixing the drinks and serving it to people. I'm like, this is the worst idea I've ever seen. When he cuts the torpedo line and drinks the like gas or the ethanol or
At
whatever.
first I was like,
holy
I was
shit.
like, what is in this tank? What? I didn't get that it was a torpedo, and then later I read that it was a torpedo, and I'm like, oh, they're drinking just the fuel.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fucked up.
so fucked. Or like
And the fact that he's like a connoisseur is like he makes all these concoctions. He's just looking through a medicine cabinet and he can smell something and go, yeah. Like he doesn't know. He doesn't read the label and go like, oh, that is turpentine. That's going to work.
Yeah.
That is not going to work. He just goes by like the taste and stuff. He goes like, yeah, that's good shit.
when I love that that's his special talent that gives him access to the cause.
Yeah.
Not if you drink it smart. Yeah.
So it's poison. Well, sometimes.
That shot of him running away from the farmer's field is one of my favorite shots in this whole movie. It's so
I was
good.
like,
So many great shots.
I was
in
like,
this
is
movie.
that Joker from the Joker movie?
Oh, you know, it was a cool shot with Amy Adams when she's doing that concentration exercise with him, telling her to change the color of her eyes, and it turns them black.
Oh, it's such a cool shot. Apparently that was like her idea on set. She was like they were kind of just doing their thing, and she came up with that idea to change their color.
I love her in this movie.
She's
She's
amazing.
so scary in this movie.
Man,
She's the real master.
Totally. Well, there's kind of.
She is. That scene where she like,
gives him the hand job and just
And the end scene where she's like, her seat is off to the side, but it's like clear that that's the real throne.
yeah.
that's right. Yeah.
And I love the scene too when it's like all the party or whatever, and he's singing and all the women are naked and she's just there in the background and she's kind of just like leaning on her chair, and the look she gives Freddy. Oh boy.
She's
I didn't
like,
notice that. I did notice her back there.
I was
also
kind of
nude.
sad because it's like her performance is good, but it's not nearly as like captivating. Because at the end of the day, she is the more like in control one. She's the less eccentric one. She's just kind of like, I'm the calm one, and I'm going to talk about what we're going to do next.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
But she has this calm intensity, and she's like it's the whole kite and the string kind of thing. Lancaster is the
sure.
kite, and he's the creating all the material.
For sure.
But then she's like the chief evangelist and making it all happen.
Right.
The operator. And it's like once something has been decided, like she's executing on it and not deviating at all.
She's keeping him grounded with couple hand jobs every once in a while.
Those just dominating him with the hand job, like, and her other hand's like on the back of his neck.
Yeah, like kind of like that power position.
Yeah, it was very
Yeah.
like controlling. Yeah,
So awesome.
It's great.
that was
want one.
that was a good scene. Uncomfortable, but I want one. Jeez Louise.
Amy Adams rules, man.
Do you guys feel like this movie successfully conveys that Freddie is like a really unreliable narrator? Because I was reading like some stuff or whatever about the movie, and I was like, I get that it's from his perspective, but I didn't get the sense that a bunch of it was like hallucinations or...
Is any of it?
Apparently there's like theories of this movie where it's like were the people even naked at the party? Like, or is that his like perversion?
I think it's implied that they weren't.
It is?
Well, because I wrote that down and I was like, wait, what? Is he hallucinating this or is this really happening? Because when would they take it? It's like the way it's filmed, it doesn't seem like there's a gap between when we see them clothed and when we see them unclothed. It seemed like it's like that's him imagining
like,
them
yeah,
naked
nice.
because he's a perv.
Oh, but then if that's true, then the hand job scene doesn't make sense because she says you can do anything, you can have affairs, but stop this stuff because this isn't happening. We're not having these like big orgies and stuff.
Yeah, well,
Like,
and
get
that's
that out
what
of your
made it
head.
confusing.
This isn't a sex cult, is what she's doing. So
I
it must be real because
Yeah, it
that's
would
what
make
she's
sense.
responding to.
Well, that's not how I read it. I read it as it was a hallucination, and then I was reading someone else online talking about it, and they said that he hallucinated it. And so I'm like, I don't know. It just seemed like logistically it would be hard for them to take all their clothes off and then continue.
He could have set up earlier that whenever he rings the bell, the women get naked, and then we
I
didn't
don't
see
know.
that happen.
I feel like it would have been more explicit. Who knows?
Who knows?
Either way,
Big muffs in the
it doesn't really
50s
make
though,
a
hey?
big change.
Anyways.
It doesn't really make a big change to the plot or the characters either way.
I love the editing in this movie too. I think there's like just these fantastic scene to scene, like within the scenes.
Who is the editor, or does he?
Yeah, I think he does have a good
because
person. but
he
I think
always
it
has
is
great editing.
so fantastic, and it's very restrained here in the best of ways, where it's like there's not any scenes where it's overcut or this, but the transitions between scenes I love, like when he's making out with that girl in the closet, like the development room. And he's like, oh, can I take you out tonight? Or like, can we go on a date tonight? And it cuts to her eating, and she's kind of alone. And then you realize like he's kind of fallen asleep beside her, and it's just this fantastic like humorous cut in a movie that's like kind of.
But it's also sad.
Funny.
It's like a tragic
super
cut.
sad.
You know what's interesting is how much time they spend setting up her, and she's not a character in the movie, but it's probably like a good 3 minutes. Like
Walking around.
She's walking around, like trying to sell the garments, and I think it's. I don't know, like, I want to know your guys' opinions, because on the one hand, you wanted to show a little kind of fling for him, and you wanted to have the setup for it, where it's not just, I guess he could have just picked someone up in a pub like he did at the end of the movie, just make eyes at somebody, and then that happens. But this is really sold like, are we getting into a love story here?
Yeah.
Because we see this whole introduction of her, and she's so like naturally flirtatious, but that's kind of the role of her job. And then they get together, and it's like, boom, it's over. It's over now. That happiness is never happening to you.
I took it as a trigger for him, because I think it's the scene after that he has the outburst.
Yeah.
With the
he's hungover and he's
gentleman.
pissed off. He's a failure.
Yeah, he's a failure. And I love that scene. It makes me so deeply uncomfortable in the way I think the movie intends, when he just like starts moving the light closer and he gets this perverted pleasure of like making
Provoking the man,
provoking the man, and they fight. I just love that fight. It feels so real, and like,
Oh, yeah.
like it's not like a stunt fight. It's just like two dudes pushing and shoving each other. I
Oh,
love
man,
it.
that-
It's the kind of fight where you would believe if they were like, yeah, Joaquin, he just picked up that glass, started throwing at him.
Yeah, 100%.
It's like, did they even know where the camera was going to go?
Yeah.
I love how it like feels sort of like two kids fighting.
Yeah.
Like he initially is just kind of like trolling him, and then it like turns into a real fight, and then as he like runs away a little bit, he's like, he's like thrilled a little bit. He's like, oh, we're playing.
Yeah, well, he knows he's gonna get his ass kicked, so that's why he does a few cheap moves there. At the beginning, he's like, okay, we're not fighting, and then he chokes him with the tie.
Yeah,
then he starts throwing stuff at him, and then after he's run away, he throws one more thing at him just to make sure.
That's what, man. That's what I'm saying. This character is so frustrating because I'm just like. Like you were saying earlier that you don't relate to him, and I'm saying that I do relate to him, but on like a very animalistic level.
Sure.
Like he represents this sort of like uninhibited behavior that an animal exhibits, and that's why I think the dynamic between him and Dodd is so interesting, because Dodd is like, on the one hand, Dodd is like, you are this like chaotic energy and you're unrestrained, and I like that because it like inspires me creatively. It helps him write and stuff. But at the same time, he's just like, okay, but don't take it too far. I need to keep you on a leash. He's literally like his pet instead of his friend.
I'm sure someone's done a like, why Freddy is the id and Dodd is the ego and Amy Adams is the super ego.
But that also makes it so hard to watch, knowing this guy just needs actual therapy without like all these trials that they put him through and abuse. And that he like signs up for, I guess, but like they're like, hey, if you want to stay with us, you know, we've adopted you into this family, but if you want to stay, you have to
from one side of the room to the other.
Yeah.
Over and over.
Yeah, I think that is a nod to this thing called introspection rundown, which is a technique that was used on the person that may have inspired the character that Joaquin's playing. His name was Welch. And introspection rundown is this like Scientology technique that actually resulted in a woman dying in 1995.
What the fuck?
Yeah, so it was first used, I think, in the, 70s. And then, so what it is basically is you totally cloister a person. You don't talk to them at all. Like, you isolate them from all social contact for days until they can. So I guess his, Hubbard's theory was like, this person who's super aggro will calm down if they don't get to interact with anybody. They'll calm down and then be receptive to auditing, which is the technology that they use to remove.
And auditing is processing? No, that's different.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Auditing is just like you hold these little instruments in your hands, and they have this little meter that goes up and down. It's just like a voltage meter, really. And they ask you questions, and they see if the needle moves. They're trying to remove thetans, which are like these schisms in your mind that contain trauma from past lives.
That's like the spirit of the aliens that have like...
Yeah, but that shit's not in there yet until you're a higher level.
Okay. Yeah.
But it's mostly just like we all have these traumas, and they're physically in your brain, and we need to release them by like confronting them. So on the surface level, when you walk into a Scientology place, which I have done for science, seriously, I was like,
I need to know.
I was like, I think they're so fascinating. I need to try to get audited if I can. They didn't, but they showed me the machine, which they normally don't. I did a whole personality test and shit, and then talked to this lady, like pretending that I was interested.
What in the world?
Oh, I'm so fascinated by Scientology.
It's very fascinating.
Anyways, what was I actually talking about?
Thetans.
Oh, the rundown, introspection rundown. So yeah. So they relax you. Apparently, it worked for this one prototypical case, and after that, they're like, this is the new thing to do when someone is super psychotic and violent, is where you do introspection rundown. And then so years later, I think Hubbard's dead at this point, and David Miscavige was in charge. In 1995, there's a lady named McPherson, I forget what her first name was, but they tried to use introspection rundown on her, and she was in a room for like 17 days, and she died. And then on the autopsy revealed she was like, no water, no food. But then apparently they didn't do introspection rundown correctly, because there was other Scientologists like in the room, but just not interacting with her. And they're like, no, that's not proper. She had to be in her own room alone. That's why she didn't calm down.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's really messed up.
It's so interesting to me that like none of these cults work without some truth.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like the processes of Scientology, like this de-Thetanization or whatever. It's like this idea that we all carry trauma and we have to get rid of it. Like that's true, man.
And the context at the time is psychology was just popping off at the time.
Right.
And people thought that with science, anything's possible.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of like how, like in that movie, What the Bleep Do We Know? You know, like, we took these bottles of water and we wrote love on one and hate on another, and then we look at it with a microscope, and the one that's labeled love is way more orderly, and and the other one's chaotic, and that means that we can like manifest things in the universe. So like, don't like you can give yourself an erection just by thinking. What else can you do with your thoughts? Anything. It's like The Secret, right? It's like
I mean, but that stuff is really, really interesting because there is a lot of stuff that like we just don't understand how that works. Like the placebo effect. Yeah. Obviously, like people exaggerate it to the point where it's like, hey man, everything and every ailment you could have is based on your thoughts. And you just need to like have positive thinking. But like there is some like spooky stuff when you think about like if you think this treatment is going to work, it has a greater chance of working, etc.
The problem is when people say that's just placebo. It's like, don't use the word just. Placebo is powerful.
Yeah, exactly.
But that brings us all back to Dodd, because it's like, okay, to what extent is he a believer in his own bullshit? And to what extent is he just a narcissist who just knows what he's doing is false and is just trying to get money? Like, he knows he's just spinning bullshit. He's aware of his own scam versus actually just being a psycho.
I think that's a really interesting question, because I feel like there's definitely a level on which you could say that he is very similar to Freddy in the sense that he just is kind of going with this and continuing to go with it because he hasn't been found out yet, and he's going to do whatever he can get away with, you know? Freddy is going to drink as much as he can and try to have sex with as many people as he can and fight as many people as he can until he gets put in prison. And I think that Lancaster is probably similar in a lot of ways, where I don't think that he fully believes what he's doing. I think that he's seen that he can bullshit people and people react a certain way. And so he has this animalistic way of being where when people react to him in a certain way, you know, it's a comedian gets laughs. So he keeps saying edgier and edgier things until people say, whoa, too far.
I think it's complex though. I don't think you can be at that level of control over people and not like, at least on one level, believe what you're selling. I think like he if he goes to the absolute core of his being, it's like he knows it's bullshit, but like these levels of himself, of protection
for sure
of himself, like I think at like many levels he does believe what he's doing is helping at least.
It's like being in denial, you know? It's like you know that something is true, but you continually tell yourself that it's not, because to fully turn and face this thing that's right beside you head on is terrifying. So even though you know it's there, you keep pretending it's not, and you sort of believe that it's not, but you sort of do believe it. It's like, you're right, it's complex. Human psychology, man. If there were easy answers, there wouldn't be cults.
What do you think at the end when he's kind of a toxic abuser too, when he's like at the scene you talked about in the jail, he's like, I'm the only one who likes you. I'm the only one who likes you, Freddy. He's like,
that's manipulation 101.
Completely. And then at the end when he's giving him this ultimatum, like, hey, are you going to hang out with us or not? And if you leave, I never want to see you again.
Right.
You can never come back. It's an exploding offer. And then it sounds like he, like almost like he wants him to leave, or that Freddy has made up his mind he's going to leave. But then he starts singing this damn song. Was that to reel him back in? What the hell?
Honestly, the last scene of this movie is so frustrating to me. Because like, okay, so he's in the theater, right? He's taking off with a motorcycle and he's doing his own thing or whatever, and then he's in the theater and he gets this phone call. But then, and it's Dodd saying, I'm in Britain, come see me in Britain, blah, blah, blah.
But then it cuts to him being asleep in the
theater? And then
theater?
it cuts to him being asleep, and I'm like, so wait, what was that, a dream? But then it cuts to Freddy in England. So I'm like...
And then Freddy says, I had a dream.
He says he had a dream in the thing, but then it's like, it's never really, I mean, I guess it's fine. The movie doesn't want to reveal to you whether it was a dream or not.
Oh, that's interesting. Because maybe he didn't call, but he like felt the call.
I don't think it was...
He definitely had to have called him. How would he even know they were in England?
I mean, I'm sure you could have
I think that it might be that he had like read that they were in England now, and maybe he like had a dream about it, and then he really thought the dream was how we got the information.
Why would he have been asleep in the theater after the call?
Yeah.
Okay, that's more compelling to me than the other unreliable narrator example we talked about earlier. So maybe, but I don't think there would just be one unreliable narrator scene.
No.
So what are the other ones then?
What do you mean? Well,
he doesn't actually drink chemicals.
I don't think him being an unreliable narrator is like a big part of, like a crucial part of the movie. I think that it's just kind of like we are with him and we're just sort of experiencing what he experiences. You know, again, it's like, I think that if the unreliable narrative thing was a bigger part of the movie, we would see more of this sort of like intentional thing. But this goes along with PTA's deal where he's just kind of like,
And
I felt like this scene would work.
I think that's my big problem with the movie is that it's not committed to any of its ideas. And I think like you could definitely have an unreliable narrator angle in this movie. And if it's there, it's kind of there, but it's not committed. And I think that this movie would be really well suited to just maybe trim a few ideas out and then focus them a little bit more.
Wait, when he gets to Lancaster in England and he gives him the Cools cigarettes.
Yeah.
Does Lancaster act like he's, oh, you brought the Cools?
He doesn't say that, but he does say like, Cools. Mm-hmm. And it's like, it seems as if they had the call. But maybe they didn't.
Yeah. Dang it. I never
like I think it's supposed to be ambiguous.
I'm gonna watch
and
it again now, looking out for this particular thing.
But anyways, we were talking about after, so like what happens after that. He says to him, which I thought was like a great line, and it really kind of like it was a great place to put this line, because it kind of like puts it sort of ties a bow around the movie, where he's like, okay, you know, go free, you know, no one's gonna tie you down or whatever. But if you figure out a way to live without serving a master, then let the rest of us know, would you? For you'd be the first person in the history of the world. And I'm like, okay, that's a good insight. That's a great line to have at the end of a movie called The Master. And then I wrote, now let me sing a weird song, because he just starts singing.
But even that line,
and then the movie ends.
Even that line, it's kind of like Freddy has realized this guy's a bullshitter and he just doesn't want to be in his collection, in like Lancaster Dodd's menagerie.
Yeah.
So he's going to leave. And then Lancaster knows that. So he goes, oh, you don't want to be one of my bitches? Well, good luck. Because everyone is in some kind of harem.
The reason I like
Come
that
back
movie,
to mine.
The reason I like the line is because it's true. Everybody serves something. And I think in Freddy's situation, he's serving his base desires and not really
instead of Lancaster.
Yeah. Well, sure.
Well, and I almost...
but everyone's serving one thing instead of another thing. It's like I think that I liked the line because it reflects the fact that, you know, we were saying earlier that society has this meaning-shaped hole and this purpose-shaped hole. And if you don't subscribe specifically and consciously to a meaning or a purpose, then you're going to be a slave to something else, and someone's going to take advantage of you,
Like
or you're
salsa dancing.
Sure, you're going to fall in with the wrong salsa dancing crowd.
I also
Picante.
feel like I interpreted that scene as Dodd also saying like, I'm not free. Like he's like
We know that Peggy's in the corner.
Well, yeah, no,
And
exactly.
her name is Peggy.
Oh,
Accident?
Hey, maybe.
And so I like the dynamic of that scene where he's kind of trying to control Freddy, but he's also admitting his own weakness or his own pain.
Right.
And I think that makes that scene just like,
and I think
salted caramel good.
Right, and that's also why I liked it, because he's saying, let the rest of us know.
Yeah, I want to know.
He's including himself in there.
Totally.
It's like, okay, Dodd is the head of this cult, but even Dodd is a slave to his desire to have people praise him, his desire to be
When it's like the machine is already
respected.
moving. He's like kind of a slave to the machine that he's created.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, he can't escape if he wanted to. I mean, he could, I guess, but be bad news.
But then he sings. He's a slave to singing.
yeah,
Book 2, you can see that he's really upset about Book 2. He knows it's crap.
Yeah.
stressed about
yeah.
I love that scene when the I can't remember the other guy who's just in the orbit of those people as well. He's like, this book sucks. It should have been 3-page handout we hand out at like the bus stop or whatever.
That guy is in There Will Be Blood, which I hope we cover someday, so just look out for him when we
It's
do.
a better movie.
It is a better movie.
I think this movie is the turning point for me with PTA.
Does he go downhill all from here?
All
You kind of
downhill.
alluded to that.
Yeah.
What's after this is Inherent Vice,
Phantom Thread,
and
Licorice Pizza, which I think was pretty good. But it's like I think everything before that is awesome. I think There Will Be Blood, Boogie Nights, Magnolia, all of them are, like Punch Drunk Love is my favorite. I think they all have like that better mix of like traditional storytelling, but then really bigger ideas and like just his weird PTA flavor, and they all coalesce into something that's not so self-indulgent. And then after that, it's just so self-important. All his movies are like, yes, there will be no point because that is the point. And it becomes so frustrating to watch.
I don't know if that
movies.
is the point, but I think he's just focusing on other things.
That's fair.
That it's not that mainstream to focus on these things.
Yeah.
Because I've seen obviously it wasn't like a critical success, but I wasn't like a box office success, but I've seen lots of comments about people saying like, oh, Phantom Thread is the perfect movie. Like on r/flicks, you'll see people say this is the perfect movie. The more I watch it, like the just more of a masterpiece it is. Whereas even myself, I was like, Paul Thomas Anderson, Daniel Day-Lewis, back together again.
Yeah.
Probably DDL's last movie. This is gonna be the shit. And I just watched it once in theaters, and I was like, it was okay. But I should watch it again. I'm sure it's better than I remember.
And it's fair. Some of his movies do get better on rewatch, but Inherent Vice is utter shit.
It's not utter shit. I watched it this year.
It's a mess. It's a mess.
It's interesting.
James, you're an unreliable narrator when it comes to this stuff.
Because I like
You love PTA.
You're biased because you like it.
You're a fan.
It's tautological. I like it because I like it.
No, you like PTA, so you like the movie made
I've never
by PTA.
even watched a single interview with the guy.
That's not
But
tautological.
it's the phenomenon that we've talked about this.
Like I don't like the man.
You like his work, so when he puts out another work, even though other people are saying there's big problems with it, you're like, I like it more than all you guys.
And we've talked about this phenomenon where you have to buy in.
I'm not
to a
saying
movie.
biases are horrible. Like I'm just saying.
Yeah, the only objectivity
bias.
is subjectivity.
Everyone has one.
aware of
The thing
itself.
is though, like I like his work, and all of his work has aspects of his work in it. So even if it has other elements I don't like as much, there's still going to be those core kind of aspects of that I like. So I'm gonna like it.
We come in here and we talk. We review the Star Wars prequels, and I say I really really enjoyed it, and I give it a higher rating. Even
It's like if I liked blue, and you're like, well, how do you like this bluey green? I'm like, well, it still has blue in it, so that's good.
Yeah, I guess so.
I guess
that's
I would-
a weird analogy, but sure, I'll go with it.
I'll admit that all his movies have really artistic qualities and like strokes of his genius. Because I think the man is a brilliant man. I think he just hit that part in his career where he got to do whatever he wanted, and he needs someone to rein him in just a tiny bit.
The old George Lucas analogy.
Exactly.
I mean, he's talked about everywhere I see him talked about. He's talked about as like one of our great directors.
Well, and
of the
I
modern
feel like
era.
the conversations around his movies become more about him than his movies. Like he stopped trying to earn our respect with his movies. He's kind of just like, we respect his movies because of him. We don't respect him because of his movies anymore.
Yeah, I don't know what like it's hard to talk about this or explain it more because I feel like someone like, let's say Denis Villeneuve, the Superman of the directing world right now.
Save us, Denis.
He can make these movies that are artsy and evoke these certain emotions, but can also be intense and complex plot-wise and intense and complex character-wise and have growth and have like messages. And I just feel like they're so deep, and you go watch a Paul Thomas Anderson movie and it like feels really, really deep. But at the end of the day, you do get the feeling that like this guy is making these movies just because he kind of likes the idea and he wants to like play around. It's a sandbox for him, you know. It's not like he's like, I have something I want to say.
I think it's always more about the relationship.
I have something
with
I
him.
want to feel.
Yeah, it's more about the main relationship.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like you guys were talking about, does it say much about Scientology? I think it shows you all the different facets of it through the characters. He's like Peggy is one aspect of it. Lancaster is one aspect of it. The other acolytes and his children, they're all different dimensions of it, but he doesn't ever make a statement about the institution.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying though. Like I want him to say a statement about anything. Like he's obviously saying like the strongest statement I can take out of this is that cults are abusive. Mental illness can't be cured with weird cult shit. It's just like, what am I supposed to take away? I don't know.
And I think maybe that is the point, and maybe there is a need for that kind of art where it's you have to put yourself into it and like experience it and bring your own conclusions. But it's frustrating as an audience when you have a meaning shaped hole when you watch a movie and you're like, give me meaning.
Exactly.
Give me fucking meaning.
Oh my gosh, now we're getting meta
Full
about
circle.
it. The film is a metaphor for society.
Let's do some rapid fire because we're running out of time. Do you guys got
Nitpicks?
Nitpicks?
Biggest hit pick. The best shot in the whole movie is when he's passed out on the top of the mast or whatever.
Oh, they're throwing bananas
at him. I love that shot. That's a 10 out of that's an 11 out of 10
There's
moment.
so many
in the whole
great
movie.
shots.
My favorite funny shot is the portraits. Like it cuts between when he's working as a portrait taker.
Photographer.
Yeah, and it cuts between all the people posing for the portraits. I was like, damn, they really nailed this like
look.
50s feel.
Yeah.
Or,
He really
or
is
40s,
great.
I guess.
Cinematography.
Yeah.
Yeah, the color in this movie is fantastic.
But honestly, just like, you know how like people from, when you see pictures of people from the 40s and 50s, they have like a look. Like,
Yeah.
It's not just the fact that they're wearing certain clothes or whatever. It's like their facial features. Like, at least when you think of like the stereotypical white people
but
of the 50s.
Makeup and eyebrows and hair like does a lot for that.
Yeah.
Sure. And when in lighting too, like it's very sourcey and directional.
So good.
Nitpick, the dark room is lit up with a yellow light. A dark room is always red light, so it doesn't expose the film.
Yeah, why? I thought...
Yeah, it's weird too because he obviously would have known that. Must have been some shooting constraint.
I think so, and I think like it fits
Well, they
the
could just color
visual theme better. Like it fits. It's more transitionally smooth to have like that yellowish green, but it was. And I mean, he's not developing photos. I think in particular, so maybe it's not a nitpick. But
Hit pick when Quel's like, "This your ship," and then Dodd's like, "I'm its commander." Yes. It's like, so it's not your ship, you bullshitter.
Yeah.
But he puts the word "yes" at the end of the clause, right?
I love that though because it seems kind of like they're kids playing Dungeons and Dragons or something. Just like, yes, I am the ship's commander and you are my ensign.
Yes.
Ensign.
Word of the day for you,
Yeah.
hey?
My from that same scene, a hit pick for me when Hoffman, or I guess I didn't know his name at that point in the movie, Dodd invites Freddie to join them for his daughter's wedding. He says, "And your memories, like come on, and your memories aren't invited." And I was like, okay, that's a weird thing to say because it's like, hey, just be in the moment, I guess. But then right after he says that, right before it cuts, the lighting gets darker.
Oh,
Did you notice that?
No.
The lighting gets like, and I rewound because I was like, did I just like imagine that? And I rewound, and the lighting on his like face and the scene just like it goes dark, cut.
Like a play almost.
Yeah, and I was
Weird.
like, okay, is this like foreshadowing?
I love the shot when I've read at the beginning. He's on the island and he's kind of like cutting the coconut. And there's just like a second where he kind of puts a knife at his wrist as if he's like kind of considering cutting off his hand off.
He's just like, how sharp is this thing? He's like hitting his own. It just shows how animalistic it is. And you know, that's one of those times where like, okay, Joaquin, whatever you want, we're just going to roll the camera for 45 minutes and you just fuck around.
You know, that's just Joaquin just being crazy.
He's the master.
He's so good.
Hit pick, young Jesse Plemons.
Yeah.
Perfectly cast.
He's always perfectly classed.
acting
Could he have
is
a
like-
menacing, ambiguous guy?
Well, I think he went on to like be like a really great actor. I think that like he's great in almost everything I've seen him in, but like he barely does anything in this movie. But I think just from like a visual casting perspective, they nailed he looks like Phillip Seymour Hoffman's
Yeah, he
son.
does.
Yeah.
And Phillip Seymour Hoffman has a son. And he's in Licorice Pizza.
Is he?
Yeah, but in 2012.
Yeah.
He was way too young back then, though.
Right.
Apparently, Paul Thomas Anderson, speaking about Tom Cruise, because Tom Cruise worked with PTA on Magnolia, so they have a relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And Cruise is like the prince of Scientology. So, here's a quote: "Yes, I have shown him the film, and yes, we are still friends. The rest is between me and Tom." Interesting. Interesting. Is the master Dodd really that paranoid when they're digging up that like cache of his unpublished work or whatever, and then before they walk away, he's like, "Wait," and he like looks around in the middle of the desert to see if anyone's watching them? Is he really that paranoid, or is that just a show for Freddy?
It could be both. I don't think he needs to do a show like that for Freddy anymore. I feel like it seemed real.
See, that's the kind of stuff. That's what this movie is about.
Right.
It's about those kind of layers when you're watching. You're just like, what is he thinking?
But I think that, like, again, I think by that point in the movie, I am seeing things like that as just like the actors adding something in. It seems like an SNL parody of like Inside the Actors Studio where someone's like giving an acting class and they're like, don't just walk to the corner, walk and then you remember something. And then, is someone in the walls?
Okay.
I mean, and it's just like you're just adding in random things to make the character more interesting. And it's like, yeah, you can see that like that is consistent with the character, and that's why they kept in the movie. And it's like, you know, but I feel like there's so much of that, especially as the movie drags on. I'm just like,
I think a movie is always, the best movies are always a balance of a million elements, and I think Paul Thomas Anderson has chosen to sacrifice plot elements for the sake of giving the actors a bigger playground to play on. And I think that's totally fine. That's a choice, but it for me it lowers my enjoyment.
Hit pick is right at the beginning you see like all those little reels for the different studios that produce the film, and then it goes black for so long that you're like, did I pause it? Is this buffering? What's going on? And then the title card, The Master, comes up. It's just like so epic.
Yeah.
I love the text they use for the title.
It's very nice font.
It's very
nice typeface.
Subdued. That's all my picks.
All right, let's do Now Playing. You watch something? Let me go.
No, you go.
Yeah, you just had my voice.
You go, James.
Okay, I watched. I was excited to see this new Cronenberg film, Crimes of the Future.
Oh, how was
it? Have you seen it?
I know about it.
So I don't know much about Cronenberg. I know he's kind of legendary and it's been around forever.
This is such a James
and he's
movie.
into like body horror. Yeah. And I read the premise and it's something to do with like VR and novel organs being grown. And I was like, this sounds pretty cool. And I put it on. I probably watched the first like 30 minutes. And it looks like a movie made in 2002.
Wow.
It's
really?
In every way. In the writing, in the delivery of lines, in the production, like this, what is that called? The production design. It looks like 2002. Like it looks cringe how bad it is. It almost even looks like Stargate, or like Battlestar Galactica, like made for TV VFX. Like it's
from the trailer, it looks like TV sets. I actually totally know what you're saying. Like everything's really brightly
even the costumes,
lit.
like Viggo Mortensen lit from above with a hood and like the shadows on his face. Like it looks so cringe and lame.
I wonder if it's like,
but it was like the concepts were so cool. And you were mentioning Denis Villeneuve earlier, and I was like, I don't think this movie is necessarily as bad as it is. I think if you took this script to Denis or these themes to Denis, this could be like Blade Runner,
right?
2049. Yeah.
But Cronenberg is more about like he's
making 70s movies.
He's not so good at like executing on the like high concept stuff.
I don't know. Just
I think he's just kind of
too old, not enough money, or
too tired.
Didn't keep up with the times. Like the concepts are super cool though.
Because I think I read that he'd been trying to make this movie for like a decade or something or longer, right?
It looks like it.
I don't know. I
didn't even finish it. I didn't give it like a fair shake.
I think he's been trying to get the movie made for a long, long time. Because he really, really is just super into like pain sex.
Yeah. It's basically what it is.
Did you describe what the premise is?
Kind of. Not really. I don't really know because I didn't watch it all. But there's performance artists, there's technology to grow new organs. You have to register the new organs because it's like, what is a human or not?
The premise, as I understand it, is that in the future they have basically gotten rid of pain. You don't
your pain threshold is very, very high.
Yeah. So in order to feel things, people do some freaking crazy weird shit to their bodies and like basically like have surgery and stuff as like a pleasurable experience. And so that's where all the body horror shit comes in.
Is all sensation lowered or is it just pain?
Well, it's like basically the sensation.
Fucking have sex.
No, you can feel good stuff. You can feel pleasure.
Yeah.
But regular sex is boring. So you got to spice it up. So people are doing this weird shit like stabbing each other while they're having sex.
You never get slapped, David?
Yeah, but it's not like
it's like BDSM stuff where it's like there's pain involved, but it's a kink.
Yeah, like there's these people, there's these extras that they walk by when they're walking down the street. They're like making out in the street, but they each are holding a knife, like cutting each other's backs.
Yeah,
pain. Sure, I guess if they have the ability to heal it, I feel like as a human.
Well, I
think they do. I think they have these little pods. They have these special chairs they sit in.
Okay.
But like I said, I was kind of like in between free time and bedtime. You know, you're like, I have about 35 minutes.
Let me just watch some torture sex.
I wanted to check it out. But
Jeez,
what are you watching?
I'm watching a fantastic show.
She-Hulk.
I did watch the first episode of She-Hulk because I'm like, you know what? I don't know. This may be good. I'll give it a chance. It was a good episode.
I agree.
I'm probably going to watch episode 2.
I got a gotcha on my wife. I was like, on Disney Plus. I was like, hey, look, there's a She-Hulk show, She-Hulk, attorney at law. And she was like, what, because she's a woman, she has to be a superhero and a lawyer? It's like, what's the normal Hulk? Does he even have a job? I'm like, he's a physicist. She was like, oh.
Yeah. Well, and this is actually... It's the same reason why WandaVision ended up being pretty interesting. It kind of like devolved near the end into just a regular Marvel thing, but it started out with this like really cool concept of like
put superhero paint on another type of show.
Yeah, we're making an interesting type of show, and it happens to be in the MCU. You know, so like this one, they the first episode is more like regular MCU, but they make it clear that the rest of the series is going to be like lawyer show. And they kind of say that in the first episode. They're like, ready? Lawyer show.
Yeah.
Like she says that to the camera. It's a bit cheesy at points, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to keep watching it. It's people have really strong opinions online about certain things. I'm like, just let their show kind of make its point, and maybe you can have its opinion. Because it's like, there's a lot of misogynists that are really mad at the show. They're like, it's not fair that she gets to have these powers and Hulk had to earn it. And it's like, well, like, let's talk about it. Yeah,
they explain it. They explain it in the show, and it makes sense. I don't know. It's fine.
So everyone who's mad about the show, just relax. Let them finish the season, make their point, and then you can have an opinion.
I feel like if it was like, if Bruce wasn't in it, or if it was more like, oh, Bruce isn't the Hulk anymore, now she's the Hulk, I'd be like, okay, this seems stupid. But because it's like, he's like her trainer, basically. And she's like, I don't want to listen to you, but then she has to listen to him, and it's like that conflict is good, you know? Anyways, the show that I actually wanted to talk about is called Midnight Mass on Netflix.
Nice.
It's been out for a while.
Yeah.
It came out in 2021.
Was it Mike?
Yeah, written and directed Mike Flanagan.
That's it.
Who did Haunting of Hill House.
And the Dr. Sleep.
Did he do Dr. Sleep?
Yeah, which we all hated.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah, and he also did the Blythe Manor one. That's.
But I think that was before Haunting of Hill House, and I think that like Netflix kind of I think he was restrained with Dr. Sleep, like he was constrained by the studio and being able to do, like, it's an adaptation. I think Haunting of Hill House was an adaptation as well, but it's a mini series, and I think that Mike Flanagan is now we watched 3 episodes of this, and I think there's 7 altogether, and he is now my favorite horror person.
Is it as good as Hill House? Because that was good.
It is, so far, it is maybe better than Hill House.
I liked the drama, the family drama of Haunting of Hill House.
That's definitely here. It's got like, the movie is basically like, so far, it's
Wait,
like,
this is a movie or show?
It's a show. It's a mini series. So far, it's like 1/3 horror stuff and 2/3 like deep dive discussions on theology and skepticism versus faith and all this stuff. It's super, super interesting.
I've been on the fence. Maybe I'll check it out.
Oh, definitely check
Get
it out.
off the fence, get in.
Yeah. And just in episode 3, things have gotten weird, let me tell you.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm going to finish the rest of it and I'll let you know.
Can't wait.
You?
I'm still moving and unpacking. My game room's so nice now, guys. My garage doesn't even feel like a garage anymore.
You're in the garage?
That's where my
Tchotchke?
game
You got
room
lots of
is.
tchotchke?
Oh, nice.
Not as much as I want, but
That's a real man cave.
It's very man cavey. It's awesome.
I'll be in the garage if you need me, honey. And then you go in there, you're just like playing NES.
I actually just switched. So there's like a lock for the garage. So if someone broke into the garage, they can't go into the house. I just switched it around to make sure no one can come into the garage. I didn't do that.
No
but
one
I should.
disturbs me.
You thought about it.
Nice. That's great, David.
I think I watched other things.
I'm happy for you.
Well, everyone, thanks for listening to this episode, and hopefully you like Paul Thomas Anderson more than Riley does. I want to do more PTA movies.
Yeah, we're gonna do what else? What else we can do? There Will Be Blood.
There Will Be Blood is like one of my favorite movies ever.
I remember liking that one.
We'll at least do that. Also, the music. You know, this Radiohead guy. We haven't even talked about that. And I'd like to do Magnolia. That movie's like Tom Cruise is actually a crazy good actor in
That's
that
his
movie.
best acting for sure.
Yeah, he should have gotten
David
an
and
Oscar
I
for
are
that.
on the fence about that one.
What's hard? It's not. That's like not my favorite PTA. And I'm like, if we do 3, I want to do like one of my faves.
Yeah. We should do them all, guys.
Is there a
PTA?
PTA
Let's
movie
go.
in which a PTA meeting occurs?
Good question.
Parent Teacher Association.
Billy Madison, maybe. Or wait, that's Punch Drunk Love.
Okay, that's the end of this one.
All right, guys. Next week, tune in. We're gonna do Annihilation.
Oh man, I'm stoked.
Yeah, I'm okay.
Alex Garland.
Yeah.
Annihilation.
Mortal Kombat 2. All right, you can tweet us. Tweet us at TJM Pod. You can email us hello@theyrejustmovies.com. Bye.
Love you.